Welcome to the Gravity Well podcast with me, Jenny Yeremy. I host the Gravity Well to celebrate and share the stories of people looking to empower others with the knowledge and skills required to reestablish stability in our communities. My mission is to work through heavy issues in conversation and process in order to lighten the load. I acknowledge that I live on the traditional territories of Treaty 7 and Métis Districts 5 and 6. The treaties and self-governance agreements established by Indigenous peoples were created to honor the laws of the land, maintain balance with nature, and give back to uphold reciprocal relationships. This knowledge and intention are what guide the Gravity Well conversations. I ask for genuine dialogue, real hearts, and openness to different perspectives. This is your invitation to find common ground with me. Positions taken by participants, either individually or collectively, do not necessarily represent those of the Gravity Well. This podcast is dedicated to the natural world, our children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and all future generations. The Gravity Well is on YouTube and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am pleased to give you an update of what's been going on in Alberta this year. This is my first official video of the new year, so Happy New Year if I can still say that. It's still January. I got it in under the wire hit there. So the stream is going to be about updates for me, the campaigns I'm working on, and then also how you can take action. So specifically, I'll be updating you on the recall campaigns, both mine and the other ones that are still running. And I'll just talk through some of the things that I see in our province as concerns that we need to address and want to make sure that others like you take action with me to address those concerns. So let's start with updates for me. So I'm still, if you aren't aware, airing from Calgary, Alberta. I grew up in Edmonton. I've been in St. Albert and now Calgary since 2000, the year 2000. And since 2020, I've been working on what I would call restoration in Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan. So I am a geophysicist and liability expert. I was in the industry for over 22 years and now have been working on this for almost 4 years outside of the industry now. So I'm going to start with just offering you some ideas about what I hear in the inbox, and then also what the work I'm doing, personally, and then also talk about the effort with the recalls that have been happening more broadly. So first of all, I'm going to share an exchange I had on YouTube recently with a user. His name is Luken, so Luken 5448. And so he mentioned to me, didn't you make a healthy living in the oil and gas industry? So I'm really glad to address this question and the exchange that came out of this. So I'm going to offer my response to him. So I said, Luken, I did and would have worked for less, especially if it meant I could work towards cleanup and restoration. I love this work so much that I now do it for free. I'd be back in the industry in a heartbeat if development ceased and water regeneration and restoration were the focus. And to my surprise, username Luken 5448 responded with, thanks for clarifying. I respect that perspective, ! While I disagree with to some extent with some of the information you're sharing and the rhetoric of some of your online followers, I respect your opinion and respect you as a fellow Albertan. Thank you for that. I appreciate the work you to help protect the Eastern Slopes that I love spending so much time in and have also worked very hard to protect. I hope I have met you, and if not, that I do get a chance to meet you in this work. And I would welcome you to bring forward the things that the information sharing that I'm doing that you disagree with, and also some of the rhetoric that you'd like to address, because I certainly would like to address that as well. So I'm really excited this year to be doing some storytelling. So we need a better story for Alberta, and so that's what I'm working on. Obviously, the story that we currently have is around separatism, and it's not a pleasant story from my perspective as somebody who worked in the industry and had coffee with the cowboy that I'd like to share some stories around that with. But essentially, I come from in 2022, I had a conversation with a friend after I was out of the company I was currently at that time. And he was asking why I wasn't working with the company anymore. And I explained to him that I had done a presentation for my peers. So I'm a geophysicist. So I presented at what's called the Geo Convention. So in 2022, actually, it was on the solstice of 2022. And that presentation was all about restoration. How do we put land stewardship first and foremost and make sure that we stop talking about things like carbon capture and storage, rather focus on land regeneration and restoration, which can help improve both, well, three things: air quality, which is, of course, the first thing that we always talk about when we think about climate change, but also land degradation and water loss. So there's a lot of benefits to investing in land restoration that can help improve water storage capacity, help improve biodiversity loss, help improve health in both humans and other species, and help us get an economy that is aligned with the ecology, if you will. So I'm going to be telling some stories from my perspective as somebody who worked in the industry. You can look to, like I said, things like Coffee with a Cowboy and potentially the Battle of the Billy Bobs. That's something I'm thinking up right now. Obviously referring to Billy Bob Thornton's Landman character. He reminds me of somebody I worked for. So I'm super excited for that work alone, but there's so much more. So I want to get into all the efforts that's been happening with respect to the recall campaigns. So our team, let's start with our team first and foremost. I could not be more proud of the people that I'm working with in this space. And I want to single out a few people. So I want to just refer to some of the numbers. And I know numbers don't always tell the full story. So I'll start with, there were 4 of us that had an advantage at the beginning of this. So myself, Tanya being one, Matthew being another, and we had one other person who also contributed tremendously as well. But we'll say 3 of us really took advantage of our early opportunity. And I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned Rasha, but yes, Rasha in that too. So yeah, I just want to say, actually, Matthew, now that I think about it, didn't have that early opportunity. So he exceeded just by being so at the ready when this started. Matthew was available for every opportunity there was to collect signatures and be in community with people and helping them understand why this is so important. I'm super grateful to Matthew for his contributions throughout this, and I'm sure we will be working beyond that, the deadline as it's passed. Okay, and I want to give a shout out to Roxanne and Mandy and Lindsay, and I also have to include Bruce in that because Bruce had his badge sort of robbed of him for weeks. It took forever for Bruce's badge to finally come in, so he got set back a bit, but they all did fantastic stuff. I have to keep going down the thing. So yeah, there's a couple names: Sierra, David, Carol Ann, Natasha, Rick, Karen, Allison, Kristen, Bruce, as I mentioned. And yeah, there's so many more I could go all the way through. I just want to say that there are over 71 canvassers who contributed to this on paper, and others that I know worked without getting signatures. So thank you for everybody's contributions to this. What an accomplishment. So let's keep in mind that we got over 6,500 contributors. And I want to take a second to compare that to the Forever Canadian petition. So the Forever Canadian petition reached its goal. So its goal was to have over, I think it was 360,000 Albertans sign, and it achieved over 460,000. So if I did my math right, that's about 17% of the population, and that's exactly what we duplicated. I threw out some loose numbers last week, so I just want to make sure I clarify that I was looking at early onset numbers. If you notice, the government of Alberta said that we've put forward over 6,500 signatures. I believe there's more in there to be verified. That's their early estimate of what we achieved there. But so similar to the Forever Canadian petition, let's say we achieved, and in the same time frame. So I guess that's to be expected in this space for people who are understanding a really important issue and taking the time to do something about it. So, this is putting pen to paper. Again, looking at what's happening in Minnesota right now. putting pen to paper is the easiest way for us to resist the direction that we're headed, the misdirection that we're headed in this province and in our country and beyond that, with the United States at taking the lead. So this is about bringing people together who are both consistent and able to take action when you need to. So thank you for that. And I'm super grateful for the conversations that I had with everyone in this space. And we would have done more. Let's be clear. You know, I had Tanya remind me that we ran out of time. And I actually feel just like she does, more empowered now than I did during the process. So for anyone in a recall campaign who is working hard to get signatures, yes, it's really important. Yes, please sign, but also get involved in those communities. Sign up for their newsletters, sign up for their email lists, sign up to Canvas, please. Sign up to, if you can't Canvas, then donate. The donations have to come from the constituencies. Help engage with the people who care about your community and are willing to take action. It feels really good, and I'm super grateful for this growing community, and I look forward to working with the other recallers as you are free to do so with me on the other side of your campaigns. So yeah, let's just remember the people that have tapped into, that the UCP tapped into, our Alberta government tapped into here. So these are teachers. The educators, the organizers of our province were impacted by this government, first and foremost with the passing of the Back to School Act, which took away teachers' rights to strike, rights to negotiate, and rights to fight for safe working conditions. And of course, those working conditions are the conditions of where our kids go to school, my kid included. My youngest is still in high school. And yeah, so there's a lot of things that that have happened to help people not understand the severity of that issue. For example, that there was a report that was meant to be released with the teachers, and that would have helped explain to folks that there are unsafe conditions in the workforce. There are classroom caps are required in order to address those concerns. And that report was not released as it should have been just before the teachers' strike. It would have helped inform the negotiations for the teachers and help the public understand the severity of the issue and what was needed to be done. So, you know, there was a ignoring of more than 51,000 teachers in that as well, who went on strike. It was a very high majority, over 90% support of a strike because of understanding the severity of the issue. And so you can't change that now. This is the issue and the opportunity that the UCP have created in this, in doing this, in forcing teachers back to work in unsafe conditions, is that this is a group that is now awake and ready to do the right thing, and as they always do, and know how to do it in the right way. So now I can tell you our group is focused on doing what's called a citizen assembly effort. So we're aiming for the public good, looking to help understand what a platform message should look like in each of the important areas of our life. So things like public school funding, coal mining, Eastern Slopes restoration, public health, water, and of course, many other things that I'm not thinking of, clean energy, affordability, etc. So we're going to start doing that work, starting from the group that formed out of this. Again, I don't have your information. The information that you provided on the petition went off to Elections Alberta. It's out of my hands. I had no way of copying any of it. It's illegal for me to do so. So that information is not with me. So the only way you can get involved, and I encourage everyone to do so, whether you agree with me or not, we're looking for citizen-led support of issues important to all of us. And that requires perspectives, everyone's perspective incorporated into this work. So join this group where we're not sure what we're called yet, but we're going to hold the Recall Nicolaides name in the meantime, and make sure that we preserve all of that really important information about how we were misled. Again, making sure that people understand that our MLA and your education minister, Dimitrios Nicolaides, was involved in the lack of negotiations on behalf of the teachers, the forcing of teachers back into unsafe conditions. That report has been released and supports what I was just highlighting for you earlier. So get involved with our initiative, which we're rebranding currently, but it's an initiative for a public assembly, a citizens' assembly, to discuss the issues that are most important to us and what we want to see from candidates in the 2026 or 2027 election, whichever comes first. Again, reminding any MLAs who are a part of the Alberta government that these recall campaigns could go away if at least 4 of you were to resign from your position in the UCP caucus and step aside and show that Albertans that you do not stand for separatism, that you stand against the taking of our public assets into private hands, and that you want to look out for public good both here and abroad. So let's get into the recall updates. So please, I encourage everyone, everything I'm about to say to you is available information for you on Operation Total Recall website. Yes, it's hilarious. Please know that that is a great sign that we're having fun while we're doing this work. So please get involved, have some fun with us. Let's start with Angela Pitts. So guys, this is it. This weekend is your last chance to sign the petition to remove Angela Pitts from the Airdrie East riding. So I'm going to do my best to outline where that is. So I looked at a map and it looks like it's from Township Road 270 to 253. And then it's also from Range Roads 1112 on West 5th to 253. But then it excludes anything around Olds. So if you're in that area, you are considered to be in Airdrie East. So there are canvassers on locations at Inspire Public Library daily during the business hours. Please look this up on the pitts-recall.ca website. That's PITT-RECALL.ca for information. That's on 805 Main Street South. So it's every day on the weeknights from 6 to 7 p.m. So you can catch them tonight, tomorrow, and Friday, and then Saturday from 12 to 2 and Sunday from 1 to 3. Take your opportunity to sign that petition. Also sign up. Sign up to become either I think at this point, just sign up as a volunteer or to be on the newsletter to get involved in the future work that we want to do to make sure that we're standing up for the people of Airdrie East. At the Basket Barhead Westlock area, your MLA is Glenn Van Dicken, I believe. And so where you can sign is at Lou's Pastime and Treasures in Westlock. So again, during business hours, during Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed on Sundays. And that goes until February 20th. Ask for recall at the front counter. Learn more about the Recall Glen campaign. So that's recall, GLENN.ca to find out more about that one. If you live in the Bassano, Duchess, Brooks, Suffield area, Redcliffe, and the north half of Medicine Hat, that's north of the Red Deer River, or South Saskatchewan River, or 3rd Street, you are in the riding where Danielle Smith is. That is Premier Danielle Smith. You have the privilege of being able to put your name on a petition sheet in saying that we are being misled by our premier. You can help call out separatism in the best way possible, in the most civil way possible. You don't need to be out on the streets in -20 like Minnesota was. You can do it from an indoor signing location in that case. Okay, so then if you are in Pine Ridge, sorry, let me go back. McBride's Bakery is helping you sign. And I will cut to the chase that if you live in Medicine Hat, the other one, so Medicine Hat, where is it here? Anyway, it's the same place. You go to McBride's Bakery. I'll come to it when I come to it. But go to recalldanielsmithnow.ca to find out more, become a canvasser, become a volunteer, donate today if you live in that area. And you can make sure to help the other campaign if you're not. Work together, rebuild that community across Brooks, Medicine Hat area. Okay, so if you are in Pine Ridge, Rundle, Marlborough Park, or Monterey Park, your MLA is Mickey Amory. So Mickey Amory is the Justice Minister. So he's the person that has okayed that all the court decisions are going to be his decisions. So there was an announcement made by the three courts of Alberta yesterday saying, no, we have checks and balances in our system. The justice system is supposed to be separate from the administrative system and from the legislative area of government. So they are abusing that effort in the new, I believe it's Bill 14 that removed the right for, or gave the privilege to the justice minister the right to be able to strike down court decisions. For example, the petition for separatism. So in case you are not aware, the Forever Canadian petition is the petition that is meant to serve as the question as to whether or not Alberta should forever remain in Canada. That is the question that should be going to a referendum right now. The government has the word from the people. We all signed, us 460,000 plus people signed a petition saying that we want to ask that question in a referendum. And instead of that question going ahead, our courts ruled down on the question of separatism that is now being asked of people. So they have circumvented that Forever Canadian effort and instead are going through with a question which is considered to be unconstitutional. And so from that, I just want to be clear that this is a really good way of how our government is misleading us. Okay, so if you are in Mickey Amory's community, please, that's Calgary Cross, go to Recall Mickey, so recall, MICKEY.ca. They go out on Saturdays and Sundays to do lit dropping and then door knocking. I'm hoping to go out with them on Sunday this weekend, I believe. Yes. Okay, so moving forward, if you are in Calgary East, so that's Peter Singh's riding, that's Abbeydale, Applewood, Belvedere, Chateau Estates, East Dover, Erin Woods, Fonda, Forest Heights, Forest Lawn, Pembroke, Red Carpet, and Southview. All of those communities are considered to be a part of Calgary East. This weekend, so this Saturday, January 31st, there is a bottle drive at 9 locations in your constituency. So please look to Recall Peter Singh. So that's Recall Peter, PETERSINGH.ca for information about those bottle drive locations. So that is, if you live in those communities of Calgary East, you can bring your bottles to those locations. You can, I'm sure, can sign as well, and you can get involved. Like I said, the best thing to do is to join as a volunteer. Okay, so now if you live in Calgary Fish Creek, your MLA is Miles McDougall. That area is Lake Bonavista, Bonavista Downs, Diamond Cove, Queensland, Deer Ridge, Deer Run, Parkland, Minnepore, and Sundance. So your locations to sign, there's one at 627 Lake Bonavista Drive, 5:30 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, and that's tonight, and behind the Centennial High School from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on tomorrow, January 29th, Thursday, January 29th. So again, go to Recall Miles in that case, so MYLES.ca to learn more. Okay, Rick MacGyver's. So Rick MacGyver's constituency is Calgary Hayes. So we're looking at Mackenzie Lake, Mackenzie Town, Mountain Park, Inverness, New Brighton, and Copperfield. Those are the communities that are within Calgary Hayes. You can sign on Saturdays, this Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. at the New Brighton Athletic Park. That's a regular signing location for it. To find out more and to get involved, go to recall-MacGyver.ca. So that's recall-MCIVER.ca for more details. If you live in Calgary North, your MLA is Muhammad Yassin, and I have an action for you at the end of this stream, which I will walk through for you. But you live in Carrington, Panorama Hills, the eastern portion of Evanston, and some streets in Hidden Valley near 14th Street and Country Hill Boulevard. That is Calgary North. Your MLA is Muhammad Yassin. Again, I have an action for you for that campaign coming up here. So if you live in Calgary Northwest, so that is just north of Calgary Bow constituency where we are in, your MLA is Rajan Sahani. Rajan Sahani was involved in the establishment of Bill 40, which is the action that took away rights of 22 professional organizations, including APEGA. So that's the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Alberta. I am a member of that group. And in that bill, they took away our right to strike, just like the teachers. They took away our right to have a professional board, mostly made up of professionals. And they ultimately took away our right to even have a board. They can ultimately appoint and what by they, I mean the advanced education minister has the capacity to appoint a single person or themselves as the single decider of APEGA members and what we can and cannot do. So I had a really good conversation with Zach Trolley about this last year. I encourage you to check it out, what Bill 40 means for us. But since then, Bill 13, it's important to understand the Jordan Peterson bill really does do what happened to the teachers to us. So the notwithstanding cause has essentially been taken against us. We could be let go from our jobs for not wanting to comply with something that we think is against public safety or against environmental integrity. Really big issue for us and some other organizations that are in amongst those 22 are veterinary organization, agriculture and food. I had somebody reach out about the federal government closing of one of our longstanding agricultural arms in Alberta, over 100 years old institution. And it is alarming. And let's be clear that the federal government is not also doing its job in several ways. For example, not upholding environmental assessments in a lot of cases. So we're looking to them specifically with Grassy Mountains, the attempts to reopen the coal mine in Grassy Mountains and making sure that the federal government upholds the law for us in that regard, for example. Okay, so to hold Rajan accountable for that, and I will also highlight that Rajan was made some submissions on behalf of Demetrios for the gerrymandering effort that he carried out while we were busy doing his job for him, talking to the constituents of Calgary Bow. So please get involved in that campaign if you live in Lynx Ridge, Royal Oak, Rocky Ridge, Scenic Acres, or Tuscany. Reach out to Melissa at recallsahani.ca. So that's recall, SAWHNEY.ca. Okay, if you live in Calgary, pay again. So your MLA is Tanya Furr. Yes, she's the one that called us mofos, the people that are trying to actually stand up for what's right in our province. Please get involved in that campaign. The organizer there, one of the organizers there, Chelsea, is an incredible air traffic control, I want to say, but she was a dispatcher by background. So she's really quite knowledgeable in how to make sure that we utilize people's skills in the best way possible. And she's got a really slick system to do so. So if you're interested in learning about that, please reach out to that campaign. And so there is a signing location at the Douglasdale North Centex Plaza from 11 till 3 on Saturday this week. And there, yeah, like I said, that website has a stellar engagement tool, which I just realized I don't have it listed right now. So I'll have to look up the name of it for us and attach it to this conversation. Okay, so Camrose, if you live in the Camrose area, to Bashaw, Daysland, to Killam, to Fish Lake, Hardisty, and Forestburg areas, your MLA is Jackie Lovely, and you're considered to be in the Camrose constituency. So there are permanent indoor signing locations at 24811 51st Avenue in Camrose. There's lots of hours available during the week. Please text 780-281-0797 to sign on a location or where you live. So if you don't see a time that you like on the website, please check out that phone number. So I'll say it one more time, 780-281-0797. Okay, if you live in the Cypress Medicine Hat area, your MLA is Justin Wright. This is, okay, so this is the south half of the Cypress Medicine Hat area. So their signing locations are dual, like I was saying, with McBride Bakery. So that is on 1791 Dunmore Road Southeast in Medicine Hat. So you can sign either of those petitions. Again, you can't sign both of them. It depends on where you live, but get involved in that campaign. Understand that this is an opportunity that is only available to you to hold our premier to account and to make sure that she stands against the things that we want to make sure she stands against and stands up for us in the ways that we need. Okay, so next on the list is Fort Saskatchewan, Vegreville area. So that is the city of Fort Saskatchewan, Lamont County. That includes Minburn County and Lavoie, Ranfurly, and Elk Lake National Park. So if you're in any of those areas, you're considered to be in the Fort Saskatchewan, Vegreville area, and your MLA is Jackie Armstrong Homanuck. And you can sign on Friday at the address is 4809 51st Street. And you can check that out. And also you can sign, that's in Fort Saskatchewan. And then you can also sign in Vegreville, or sorry, excuse me, Two Hills at 4914 49th Street in Two Hills. So great. There's a couple of places for you to sign. So again, find them at recalljackie.ca. So RECALL, Jackie, JACKIE.ca. Okay, if you are in Grande Prairie, so it is mostly all of Grande Prairie. It's 2/3 of Grande Prairie, the north third of Grande Prairie, and then on the west side of what's called Fly Shot Lake up to Hugh Lake, and on the east end of Hermit Lake. So those are the areas which are considered to be a part of the Grande Prairie constituency. You can sign at 9913 112th Avenue from Monday through Friday from 4:15 to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. That's at the doors between the Partner Naturally and Alberta Lab Services on site in Grande Prairie. So that's where you can sign the recallnolandyck.ca. So recall NOLANDYCK.ca. If you're in Grande Prairie, Wapiti area, so that is the city of Grande Prairie, county of Grande Prairie, and the MD of Greenview, Sexsmith, Wembley, Beaver Lodge, and Horse Lake First Nations. You're considered to be in Grande Prairie, Wapiti area. Your MLA is Ron Weeb. You can sign at the same place as where you can sign for Nolan Dick. So that again was 9913 112th Avenue in Grande Prairie. Check it out. If you're in the Highwood, so I will shout out to my friends James and Gord down in the Highwood working the Sigurdsson campaign. So that is our MLA for agriculture, keeping in mind that that MLA has not called out anything against the coal mining. In fact, he's for it, despite knowing that it'll directly harm the irrigation district, which he is meant to be overseeing. So big opportunity to hold him to account for that. You can generally find them at the Okotoks Recreation Center during the day. And if not, you can also contact, if you're not comfortable with signing in public, please use their mobile canvassing. So it's mobile rjreca@gmail.com. So mobile rjreca@gmail.com for mobile signing. That's really important one to make sure you get involved in a discussion around agriculture and what that looks like in the future. There's a lot of really bright people that are capable of having those really valuable discussions. Okotoks has a drought resistance program for local community members. So it's really knowledgeable group of people and really important to join that community. So please do. If you live in Lethbridge East, I unfortunately cannot encourage you to get involved in the recall campaign there. There's been questions about who is running that campaign. There's been questions about the intention behind that campaign. There's a concern that there's a school board trustee involved and potentially the unaffordability minister's office itself. So I encourage you to look to a Substack article titled 86753, oh my, and learn more about that. It's a very clear investigative effort that I would have never thought of, I have to say, to figure out who might be behind that campaign. Okay, if you live in Morinville, St. Albert, I was in your constituency last week on Tuesday night, I think it was, at the rec center just north of Morinville. I grew up in St. Albert for half of my life, so I have a big, want for people to get involved in this work from the place that I live. So thank you very much. I want to say to Ashley, who I know, and the others who I met there, thank you so much for inviting me in and having a conversation about what looks good in the future. I'm going to make sure that I share my learnings with the other recall campaigns, and got some really good ideas from a former St. Albert resident who was watching the campaign and recognizing her abilities were needed. So she stepped to the plate and has been helping them from afar. She's been driving outside of her area to help in that one. And I know many people who did that for the Recall Nicolaides campaign too. Thank you to everybody who was there as a regular, Allison being one of them. I went to your house and saw the drive that you take. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so if you want to help shape platform and decide who represents you for what you want, please go to the recalldale.ca. And the areas that you're in is Legal, Redwater, Gibbons, Cardiff, Morinville, Nanaimo, Bond Accord area, CFB, Edmonton, St. Albert. So that's east of St. Albert Trail and north of Boudreaux Road, including rural northeast Erin Ridge, Oakmont, Woodlands. Shout out to my fellow where I went to school, elementary school in Woodlands, Kingswood, and Pineview. So yeah, I can hear the song, but I can't think of the name. Neelam Ross was the school. There we go. Okay, so next on the list is Red Deer North and Red Deer South. So those are our MLA for Red Deer North is Adriana LaGrange. She is the Minister of Health, and I would say unhealth in the way that it's going. So please go to recallreddeer.ca to learn about both of these campaigns in one site. They're both listed there for you. And you can sign regularly at CFCW Local from 3 to 5 p.m. today through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, you can sign at 4730 Ross Street in Red Deer. So that's both petitions at the same location. Some really bright people involved in that. Please get involved, become one of their campaign members, become a volunteer, donate however you can help. If you can't be there on site, please donate with dollars, help the word get out that way. Okay, and if you live in Spruce Grove, Stony Plain area, your MLA is Cyril Turton. You can sign regularly at that yoga place in Spruce Grove daily. So please go to their website. Again, I don't have that one listed. I'll find it for you and attach it to this conversation as well. The last one, and certainly not least, is for Nate Glubish. That's in Strathcona Sherwood Park area. So that is east of Clover Bar Road and south of Highway 630 and east to Range Road 202 past Hastings Lake and down to Township Road 518. So that's considered Strathcona Sherwood Park area. Your MLA is Nate Glubish. Please check out the info on this stream for their website. Okay, I did want to mention a couple other things that are important in Alberta. So the Eastern Slopes Watershed Protection Assemblies are underway. That's a series of community assemblies across Alberta to learn, connect, and help shape a shared vision for protecting and restoring the Eastern Slope headwaters. It's being hosted by Land Lovers Network, Colin Smith, He's a good friend of mine, of course. He's been on this podcast a few times, if not a handful of times. So please get involved in that. So that's an opportunity, again, a citizens-led initiative, conversations about what's going well in water stewardship, what's not going well, what do we need to see more of. I was at the Canmore location with a few of my friends, and it was a great night. I really encourage you to get involved in that conversation and shape some decisions for protection and restoration in the Eastern Slopes. And the UN announced last week that the world is entering a global water bankruptcy. So I'm going to walk through a few things from that here for us. Firstly, what that means. So it means that, I'll just go back up to the top here. So I'm looking at the Global Water Bankruptcy Report. There is an executive summary on pages 8, 10, I guess it is, and 11. So that it's saying that we've entered the era of depletion. So we've taken more than we can expect to come back into the system in many areas, draining rivers, lakes, and aquifers, wetlands, soils, and glaciers. And so in order for this to turn around, we need to first and foremost stop expanding these issues and start working to restore. So billions of us are now water insecure. Surface water is shrinking at a significant scale. Wetlands have been liquidated. We know there's a lot of that's happened in Alberta in particular. Groundwater depletion and land subsidence are widespread and often irreversible. You might have heard of Mexico City. There are wellheads that are sitting 10 feet, sometimes meters above the ground. So significant depletion of the water table has caused the land to subside significantly. The agricultural heartland are running down their water capital. So this is where Alberta is looking to expand irrigation. This is a space where we're seeing a loss of water that won't actually provide that volume long term. So we're moving in the wrong direction there locally, and we're not improving our land and soil capacity. So making sure that we're adding back to the soil in a way that is regenerative, that's not a focus that we have happening in our province. And so these are some of the reasons why we were in what's called now water bankruptcy. Water quality is going down. The freshwater boundaries are being transgressed. So we're seeing rivers deplete. They're not necessarily meeting the ocean in some cases for long periods of time. So that means significant land degradation that will be associated with that too. So to be clear, now I'm looking at pages 15 and 16 of the same report. So the water is already, as we said, in bankruptcy. So these are messages that we need to think about when we're talking about taking action. So water stress and water crisis, those are inadequate language. So we need to increase what we're talking about. It's not just about stress, it's about depletion. So we must address this insolvency. So look at it as a water-focused economy and making sure that we are looking at what's happening with our water first and foremost. So thankfully, we at the same time should acknowledge that energy demand will be dropping as we move into an electrical system. So even though we are switching and creating vehicles or new electrical systems based on batteries and away from fossil fuels, that system uses 5% of the overall energy and resource usage from the fossil system. So if you imagine replacing so many of those resources, it really reduces the amount of ongoing inputs and energy requirements to keep that system going. So that as that energy demand drops, we can focus on water restoration and looking to rebalance the rights of nature and make sure that we are providing back the capital that we need to in terms of both water, biodiversity, cleaning up, as I was saying, the industrial system. From my perspective, that is reducing footprint off the landscape, that work I was talking about in that exchange I had on YouTube in the early part of this conversation, which is that if we clean up and restore the industrial sites in Alberta, that is a tremendous economy that we have ahead for ourselves, and it can be in line with this need now to focus on water as our primary economy for the world and obviously locally too. As a headwater province, Alberta has a responsibility to do so. So I'm excited to be following that work, and I want to say there are some local leaders that are working to create what water assembly on that issue itself, looking to any political leaders, people that are knowledgeable in this space and have the capacity to speak to it. I hope to bring in some people into this conversation to talk further about our local efforts to get our economy centered on this critical issue. And in that, I do want to mention that there are some legal actions that have been happening that will help frame this problem for people too. Related to the separatist petition, there is a legal action taken by Treaties 6, 7, and 8 leaders. There's a lawsuit being formed by a woman that I know as Orla O'Kelly, and I'm hoping to have a conversation with them about that action. I want to give a shout out to the Camrose lawyers who spoke out against the abuse of power in the Ministry of Justice, as I was mentioning earlier, for the Recall Mickey campaign. So again, take action, join any of the teams that I mentioned in terms of the recall campaigns. And as I mentioned somewhat early on into this conversation, there is a bonus action for you to take. So on the backs of the separatist petition and the clear action from the US that this is being initiated or potentially trying to be influenced from the US government, it's really important to understand that there's an opportunity for if you're an MLA of the Alberta government right now, if you are serving under the United Conservative Party envelope of Alberta envelope, you have the capacity to step aside from your role and demonstrate that you do not stand with the separatist movement. This gives you an opportunity to reverse on back to the promises you gave before you were elected in 2023. You can stand against coal mining in the Eastern Slopes. You can stand up for CPP and the other Canadian institutions that are being eroded by your government. You can stand against the use of the notwithstanding clause against the trans community, against teachers, against professionals. You can do that just simply by following Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair's lead in resigning from your positions and stepping aside. So we have decided, and I'm doing this based on the great work that was done by a woman by the name of Julietta Sorensen Cass. She issued a letter to her MLA and the Assistant Minister of Multiculturalism in Calgary North. That's the Honorable Muhammad Yassin. So here's what she had to say, and I hope you take the opportunity to do the same. Again, I will make this letter available to you so you can do a simple copy and paste and make some edits, make it your own, and send it off yourself. But I will close with reading this letter that I have adapted from the great work by Julietta. So here we go. Dear Honorable Muhammad Yassin, Assistant Minister of Multiculturalism and MLA for Calgary North, I am writing to you as a Calgary, not in my case, an Albertan who is generally frightened. I am watching what's happening in the United States, studying the steps that brought them to their current reality, and increasingly recognizing those same steps being taken here in Alberta. What we are witnessing south of the border is not sudden. It's the outcome of years of political decisions made when party loyalty was placed above the common good. I wrote to you or your leader asking that you protect minority groups, specifically trans youth, who already face disproportionately high rates of suicide, discrimination, and violence. I asked you not to support legislation that would strip them of their rights. I asked directly who the next target of the notwithstanding clause would be and if it would be used so readily against a vulnerable minority. You did not respond. Instead, you voted in favor of using the notwithstanding clause against teachers in Bill 2, the Back to School Act, on October 27th, 2025. You imposed terms on striking teachers, ordered them back to work into unsafe conditions without arbitration. Then, on December 10th, you voted in favor of that legislation being used against trans youth. The Protecting Alberta's Children Statute Amendment Act, or Bill 9, passed on December 10th, 2025, which invoked the notwithstanding clause to shield multiple anti-trans laws from charter challenge. This is not an abstract concern. This is recognizing a pattern. We are watching law enforcement in the United States become increasingly militarized and brutalizing against civilians. Alberta itself has a troubling history of law enforcement struggling under strained services and a lack of preventative support. Yet you voted in support of creating an additional provincial police force rather than strengthening support and accountability within our existing systems through legislation such as Public Safety and Emergency Services Statute Amendment Act, Bill 4, also from 2025, and prior clauses enabling an independent provincial police force service. We are witnessing the murder of protesters, the abduction of children, and the detention and deportation of legal civilian citizens in the United States. And yet, when separatists in Alberta openly praising joining the United States as the 51st state and called for legislative challenges to announce an otherwise unconstitutional separatist petition to proceed, you voted in favor of Bill 14, the Justice Statute Amendment Act, which amended the Citizens Initiative Act and provincial referendum framework to remove the safeguards that help prevent such petitions from moving forward. At each of these moments, through your privileged position of power, you have voted in ways that bring Alberta closer to the political conditions we are watching unfold in the United States and further from the safety, freedom, and democratic stability we cherish in Canada. You cannot undo the votes you have already cast, but you can still show Albertans that you are unwilling to let the UCP lead this province further down this path. Demonstrate your lack of support for separation and the above by stepping aside from the UCP caucus and party. You can use your voice to state clearly that you support conservatism rooted in democratic restraint and respect for rights, not separatism, authoritarianism, or governance by override. Not the pollution of our drinking water, not an Alberta police force, not the stripping of the Canadian pension plans, reinstating the rights of municipalities and restoring their funding, redirecting fossil fuel funding towards public schools and hospitals. You can resign in honor, sending a message to your party that these are not the values you or your constituents stand for. I'm asking you sincerely and urgently to stand up for us so that Alberta does not become the 51st state by name or by nature. Look to the state of Puerto Rico to know what this will look like for Alberta and Canada by extension. Yours truly, Jenny Jeremy, again adapted from Julietta Sorensen Cass's letter issued to you. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please remember to like and subscribe to The Gravity Well. Take care for now.